Hi my friends, this is your CQY. We are going to look into powers of 10. Our I can't statement is I can multiply by the powers of 10 and understand its value. So when we look at the first practice problem together, it asks, number 1, what is 58 and 3/10 multiplied by 10? What is 58 and 3/10 multiplied by 100? What is 58 and 3/10 multiplied by 1,000? And then finally, what is happening to the value as you are multiplying it? Okay, so when we look at our place value chart, remember, our place value system is based on 10. And what that means is as you are shifting to the left, your value is going to get 10 times larger. For instance, if you go from the 1s to the 10th place value, it's jumping by 10. From 10 to 100, it's jumping by 100, or it's shifting by 100. It's increasing by 10 each time when you go to the left. Now, also, when you go to the left, it's also decreasing by 10. Okay? So we know our place value is based on 10. We know we need to first start with writing down where 58 and 3/10 is. Okay? So I have my place value chart here to kind of help me. I will now put it as 58 and 3/10. Now, I want to multiply it by 10. That means I want to make it 10 times larger. And when I do that, I need to shift all of my numbers that represents each place value once to the left. Because every time I shift each number to the left, it gets 10 times larger. So what I would do is I would just place one decimal down here. And that decimal will help me to remind me that I'm only shifting it once because I'm trying to make each value 10 times larger. Okay, and I also know that by knowing that there's 1 0 at the end, it tells me to shift it once. Okay, so now my 3 that was in my 10th place value is now shifting over once to the 1's place value. The 8 from the 1's place value is now in the 10s. The 5 from the 10th place value is now in the hundreds. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock in my answer. So my answer looks like 583. And I know that 58 and 3/10 multiplied by 10 will now give me 583. Okay, so let's look into the next problem. The next problem tells you to multiply 58 and 3/10 by 100. What's happening to the value? It's being multiplied by 100, so it's increasing by 100. It's getting 100 times larger. And when I do that, I know that I'm going to shift it twice. And the reason why I'm shifting it twice because every time you shift it once, it increases by 10. But if you shift it twice, it increases it by 100. Okay? So I know I need to first place 58 and 3/10 on my place value chart. Okay? Once I do that, I need to go ahead and place 2 decimals because I know I'm going to shift each place value twice to make it 100 times larger. I can also look at the 2 zeros at the end. It tells me to shift it twice. Okay? So when I do that, I'm now going to shift the 3 in the 10th place value to the 1s, the 8 from the 1's place value to the 10s. Now that 5 is now in the hundreds. So now I've shifted it once. I made it 10 times bigger. Now I'm going to shift it twice to make it 100 times bigger. So now that 3 is going underneath here to go to the 10th place value. The 8 will be in the hundreds place value, and the 5 will be in the thousandths place value. And now notice it's blank right here. It's empty. What I would do is I would place a 0 here, okay, because that does not change my value. And then I will lock in my answer. So my answer is 5,830. Okay, so I know 58 and 3/10 multiplied by 100 would now give me 5,830. Okay, because it made it 100 times bigger. So now what I'm going to do is we are going to make 58 and 3/10 1,000 times bigger. Okay, so then I will write 58, same process, 58 and 3/10. Now I'm going to place 1, 2, 3 because that would be 10 times larger, 100 times larger, 1,000 times larger. And then I can also look at my 3 zeros at the end. It tells me to shift it 3 times. Okay, so then my 3 will be here, 8 will be here, 5 will be here. Be very careful when you are shifting your numbers because you want it to be aligned. You want it to keep its place and its place value. Okay, and then my 3 is now in the tens place value. Okay. The 8 would be in the hundreds, and then the 5 would be in the thousands. Okay. So when I do that, make sure you put your 0 here, because if you don't, you're going to forget. Okay. So now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to shift it again. And so my 3 will be here, 8 will be here, 5 will be here, and then there are empty spaces there, so I'm going to put in 0. So then I can lock in my answer. And so now your answer is 58,300. 58,300. Sorry, not 8. 58,300. Okay? So when you do that, I'm trying to make it where you can see it a little bit better. See it? Okay, let's see. Too dark. Oh. Okay, so then I know that when I multiply 58 and 3/10 by 1,000, it's going to be 58,300 because you made that number 1,000 times larger. Okay, so what is happening to the value if we compare it? It went from 583 to 5,830 to 58,300. So each time you're multiplying it by 10, and then by 100, by 1,000, it's increasing by 10. It's getting 10 times larger. So my answer would be, what is happening to the value? The value is increasing by 10, or you can say it is getting 10 times larger. Okay. Now, the next one I want to look into is now we are trying to divide it. And when we divide it, we're making it smaller. And we're still going to base it off on our place value chart. But instead of shifting it to the left to make it larger, we're going to shift to the right. Because when we shift to the right, it gets 10 times smaller each time. 10 times to 100 times to 1,000 times. So again, number 1 says, what is 58 and 3/10 divided by 10? Then what is 58 and 3/10 divided by 100? Then what is 58 and 3/10 divided by 1,000? And then what is happening to the value? So first, I want to go ahead and place 58 and 3/10 here. I'm going to divide it by 10. That means I'm trying to make it 10 times smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in my decimal. And my decimal here tells me, it reminds me, I'm going to shift it once so that I can make it 10 times smaller. And I can also look at my 0 to tell me that. Okay? So when I shift it, I'm going to shift each place value over, keeping my decimal where it is. So now my 5 will go underneath here into the ones place value. Okay? The 8 should be underneath here, and it'll be in the tens place value. And that 3 will be in the hundreds place value. And so when we do this, we can go ahead and lock in our answer. And then I can put it right here as 5 and 83 hundredths. Okay? So when you divide it by 10, you're making it 10 times smaller. So now let's look into the next problem. The next problem looks like 58 and 3/10. I'm going to keep it the same. Divided by 100. So I know I'm going to make it 100 times smaller, and I'm going to shift it twice. Because once I shift it once, it gets 10 times smaller. Shift it twice, it gets 100 times smaller because it's going by 10. And I can also look at my zeros at the end. It tells me to shift it twice. Let me go ahead and put 2 decimals down here to remind me that I'm shifting it twice. So now my 5 will be underneath the ones place value. The 8 will be underneath the tens place value. The 3 will be underneath the hundreds place value. Okay, so I shifted it once, so let's shift it again. 5 would be now in the tens place value, the 8 would be in the hundreds, and then the 3 would be in the thousands, and then I can lock it in. And I would read this number as 583,000. And then I can put it at 583,000. Okay? Alright. The next one we could probably do, but remember, we don't go any place value in 5th grade past thousands. But if we were to, it would be 10,000. Let's challenge ourselves to see if we can do that. Okay, so then I know if I have 58 and 3/10, I'm going to try to divide it by 1,000. So that means I'm going to shift it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And when I do that, I'm going to get 1,000 times smaller. So I am going to then shift it once. 5 goes here, 8 goes here, 3 goes here once. Twice, so 10 times smaller, 100 times smaller, and then 3 times to make it 1,000 times smaller. 5, 8, 3. That seems empty, so I'm going to put a 0 here. That does not change my value. Okay, and what I would do is I would read this as 583 10,000s. 5th grade, we don't go into 10,000s, but it doesn't hurt to give ourselves a challenge. Okay, so we put a decimal here, 0.583. That would be 583 10,000s. Okay, and that is how we would divide each number. Now, what is happening to the value? We know it went from 58 and 3/10. Now it went, we divided by 10 and it got to 5 and 83 hundredths. Then it went to 583 thousandths, and then it went to 583 10,000ths. So as we see, each time it's shifting, it's getting 10 times smaller. So I can answer this by saying it is getting 10 times smaller. Okay. Now, try to practice the next few problems with a partner.